What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Earn It, Save It, Invest It. Today, I'm going to be breaking down the Novo lawsuit against Hims and Hers. I'm sure if you're watching this, you're either interested in buying the stock, interested in maybe selling the stock, or you're a holder, right? So I'm going to be breaking down what's going on with the lawsuit. Are there any real grounds under it, right? What are the risks versus rewards? As well as there's one thing I found, a little secret that no one's really talking about, and I think it could actually be pretty explosive to the business. So I'm just going to go over this really quick. I went through the whole lawsuit, so you don't have to. I clipped it off, screenshotted, highlighted all the good stuff to really break it down easily. So we're going to go through everything really quickly. So let's just get into it, right? So first things first, the potential risks, right? I like bad news first. We've got FDA, Novo lawsuit, and the brand pain, right? What's going to happen? What's going on with the FDA, right? Or what's going on with this lawsuit? And then the brand pain. If they lose, what kind of damage happens and what's going on right now, right? What kind of pain? And I'm sure you know the stock has been hit pretty bad. What are the potential rewards, right? The brand gain, if they win, what could really happen to the brand and the business? The continuing of compounding, right? That's obviously what this whole lawsuit's about, really. And then the future investments. They've been making a lot of investments into the business. So what happens to that if they end up winning? So, and then of course, the number one secret that no one is talking about, there is something that I'm seeing, and it's interesting that no one's really talking about this, which could be explosive to Hims' business. So really quick, grab some popcorn, go to the bathroom, like and subscribe. It's going to be a doozy because, like I said, I went through the whole lawsuit. I took a lot of screenshots and highlighted a bunch of stuff. So first things first, let's go through the FDA, right? We're going to kind of go through a timeline. I want to do this in order, right? So that we know what's going on. So February 21st, the FDA declared a nationwide shortage, right? So we're going to go through the timeline. June 2021, the FDA approves Wegovy, the Semaglutide for chronic weight management. Then March 2022, FDA adds Wegovy to the drug shortage list due to high demand. Then in August 2022, Ozempic is added to the shortage list. Then all throughout 2023 and 2024, prolonged widespread shortages led to a surge in the use of compounded generic semaglutide, which is obviously the injectable that people have been using to lose weight. February 21st, 2025, FDA removes all doses of injectable semaglutide from the drug shortage list, marking it as resolved. April 22, 2025, deadline for 503 pharmacies to stop compounding semaglutide. And then May 2025, 503 the deadline for 503B outsourcing facilities to stop the compounding. So while the shortage is officially resolved, the FDA indicated that consumers might still experience temporary or local supply disruptions as the stock replenishes. So as you can see, we had the shortage, which really led to the big boom of Hims being able to just offer just outright, here's the shot, right? And then they started compounding as well, and then they continue to compound as these deadlines have passed. So you might be asking yourself exactly what is a 503 and a 50B compound. We're going to go through this really quick. 503A pharmacies handle patient-specific prescriptions and are state regulated, while 503B outsourcing facilities compound in bulk for office use, and those must follow stricter current good manufacturing practices and are directly regulated by the FDA. So the 503 is for customized individual needs, whereas 503B serves hospitals and clinics needing larger and standardized quantities. Now, I know this might be a lot to go through, but if you actually care about this lawsuit, what's going to go on, this stuff is really important, knowing what these facilities are, right? 503A, 503B, and how are they being used, right? This is the real big one. 503A is for customized individual needs, right? That is a big one to remember. So again, 503, patient-specific medications on a prescription, not required to register with the FDA. Best for unique patient needs like specific flavors, concentrations, and other stuff, right? Then 503B, again, it's for bulk compounding for like hospitals and clinics. It's regulated by the FDA and state board, so it must follow some strict guidelines, right? Large batches, and it must register with the FDA and are subject to FDA inspection. So, so that's basically that, right? Hims does own both 503A and 503B, and they use those facilities to make other medications, right? It says right here, early 2026, making the production of essentially copies by compounding pharmacies illegal under sections 503A, 503B. Pharmacies must cease compounding or face federal enforcement actions, right? So early 2026, if you didn't hear, Wegovy, they launched their pill, right? And so that really set everything off with Hims as well, doing the same thing. We're going to go into that. So it says right here, with the shortage declared resolved as of February 2025, these restrictions are now enforced. Following the end of the shortage, compounded semaglutide products must be stopped being produced, with enforcement actions targeting those that continue, which would be Hims, right? Restricting or banning the sale of shipment of compounding semaglutide from out-of-state or non-licensed pharmacies. So again, there's more. These are the laws. These are the laws when it comes to the 503A and 503B, right? What can they do? But here's something really important, right? Here's this. Limited exceptions. Compounding may still be allowed if the drug is customized for a specific patient with a documented, unique medical need. This is important. I can't stress enough how important that part is when it comes to this lawsuit and what's going to happen. This is just a quick example of what they were offering. Now, this is just the regular GLP-1 injections that they were giving. This is kind of like the commercial type, just the regular old, just bam, you get it. This is the compounded one. Now, if you can see, I underlined it right here, RX required. Now, they don't sell this anymore. They did this for a little bit, but now they only do the compounded GLP-1, and it says RX required, right? You need a prescription in order to get that. Again, that is very important. So if you did here, February 5th, Hims & Hers expands personalized weight loss portfolio, and now they have the compounded pills starting at $50 a month, basically, right? Here's where I think it really, obviously launching a pill and all that stuff, right, at the same time as the competitor, in the way that they did, I think really got to them, obviously Novo, but there's also the one thing that I really think, and I underlined it in red. But it says here, they announced an expansion of its weight loss specialty by enabling providers to prescribe compounded semaglutide pill with the same active ingredient as Wegovy. When you're putting that out, you're literally just grabbing the attention of those people, right? Novo is the producer of Wegovy, and they don't want to be associated with Hims & Hers right now, right? It's very clear that they ended their business deal last year, and they're not on good terms right now. So that is a big one by adding the same ingredient as Wegovy. Then the next day, February 6th, FDA intends to take action against non-FDA approved GLP-1 drugs. Right? U.S. FDA announced intent to take decisive steps to restrict GLP-1 active pharmaceutical ingredients, including Hims & Hers and other compounding pharmacies, right? So again, they specifically named Hims & Hers right here. Here we go. That's better, right? They specifically named Hims & Hers right here. But then check this out too. The FDA is also taking steps to combat misleading direct-to-consumer advertising and marketing following the warning letters that were sent. So they also cannot state compounded drugs use the same active ingredient as the FDA-approved drugs, or that compounded drugs are clinically proven to produce results for the patient. So you gotta, that is a big one. Novo is really pissed off that they're saying, hey, it's the same thing as Wegovy, it's the same active. You can have the same ingredient, but if you also have a lot of other ingredients and other things around it, it can change how that ingredients work, right? How that ingredient works in the body, in that medical product, whatever, right? So it is different. It becomes different. And so when you say the same active ingredient as Wegovy, it's not. So I think that's a big deal or a big reason why Novo was coming after them. And then the next day, after the FDA and everything, Hims and Hers Health to stop offering copycat Wegovy pill, right? And they're literally calling it the copycat Wegovy pill. Following pressure from Novo, right, they'll no longer offer the compounded version. Since launching the compounded semaglutide pill on our platform, we've had constructive conversation with stakeholders across the industry. As a result, we have decided to stop offering access to this treatment. So it says Novo Nordisk also threatened legal action. No, they did. Novo sues Hims and Hers over copycat versions of Wegovy drugs. So it says right here, Novo Nordisk is asking the court to permanently ban Hims from selling compounded versions of its drugs that infringe on the company's patents and seeking to recover damages. Yes, the move escalates the feud between Novo and Hims because again they've been going at it. So that's a big deal. Novo is straight up saying, you know what, Hims, we want nothing to do with you. And other companies, right? There's the Roe and all these companies that you can get Wegovy from these other businesses because they're doing business deals with them, right? Hims is not really doing that, and this kind of explains a little bit of what I'm saying. Is that it says Hims says Novo lawsuit over Wegovy patent is a blatant attack. Hims and Hers on Monday called the patent lawsuit filed by Novo Nordisk over IP rights linked to the Danish drug maker's weight loss a blatant attack targeting millions of Americans who rely on compounded medications for access to personalized care. This I cannot again stress enough. The personalized care, the personalization, the prescription, this is going to play probably the biggest part. Them advertising same active ingredient as Wegovy, they got caught. They put that over and over and over. They put it on the website, they put it on videos, they put it on everything. So they got caught. They're gonna get in trouble for probably. But are they going to get in trouble for actually compounding the drug when there was that exception, right? The unique exception of people who need a personalized medication. So that's going to be very, very interesting. So we're going to go over the Novo lawsuit. I'm going to break down exactly what are they really suing for. Oh my God, I just realized how bad. Hold on, I'm gonna fix this because this is gonna bug me so bad now. Oh my God, I've already been on 12 minutes. Oh, that's fine. Let's just do this really quick. Sorry, I cannot believe I did not fix that before. All right, that was way off to the side. That looked ugly. All right, the Novo lawsuit. Let me click here. All right, now this is just the generic. What it is, right? So we have plaintiffs, Novo Nordisk filed their complaint against Hims and Hers Health for patent infringement. Okay. Building on decades of research and billions of dollars invested, Novo has been a pioneer at the forefront of researching, studying class molecules known as so there's going to be a lot of words that I don't know how to say. A glucagon-like peptide-1 receptor agonist. Basically, this case concerns Novo Nordisk discovery and development of a particular GLP-1 molecule called semaglutide, right? So that's what this concerns. Okay. It says right here, semaglutide is the active pharmaceutical ingredient for Ozempic, Wegovy, and Rybelsus. I don't know that. I actually don't know that one. Well, I know it's the other pill one, but I just don't know how to say it. To bring these innovative drugs to market, Novo Nordisk met the demanding requirements under the laws and regulations governing the approval of pharmaceutical drug products, which ensure safety, effectiveness, and quality of medicines before they reach patients. So they're saying, hey, we did all the testing, right? We put our money there. We spent all the time. Novo's IP, intellectual property, includes this patent. This is going to be a big deal. It protects semaglutide and the pharmaceutical products containing it, which Novo developed through intensive research and development. Other pharmaceutical companies that wish to develop and make generic semaglutide products have applied for FDA approval of their proposed generic products, and in doing so filed with FDA-required certifications as to Novo intellectual property. Now, this is a generic, right? Again, approval for their generic products. I have a feeling that their Hims attorney is going to attack this part. They're not doing generic. Back, well, I could show you the screenshot. I would have to go too far back, but they had the two pills, right? They had the one that was, like I said, it was just a straight up generic commercial. This is the GLP-1. And then they had the compounded version, the one that's more personalized to you and what you need. So that's going to be something that is huge in this lawsuit. It says defendants, however, attempt to circumvent the regulatory process by marketing products as described compounded GLP-1s that have not been reviewed or approved by the FDA. Hims states that its compounded GLP-1 product contained the same active ingredient in the brand name medication Wegovy and Ozempic, which the website further described as Semaglutide. So, they're just essentially saying, that Hims is selling it, right? But it's compounded. Now it's different. It's not generic, right? That was the other one. Now they're talking about the compounding of it. Defendants are large and sophisticated companies in the healthcare space that would be aware that semaglutide, one of the most successful and revolutionary drugs in recent medical history, is subject to patent protection. Companies like Lilly and Novo are clearly going out of their way to protect their franchises, the franchises they have. Hims CEO Andrew Dudum in August said, very few, if any, examples where large pharma comes after legitimate, clinically necessary compounding. It also has been reported that Mr. Dudum said Canada will be the roadmap for the future countries as Ozempic goes off patent. Now, the thing about this that caught my eye is that they're definitely focused on the CEO, and I have had a problem with him. He has been a little bit reckless with how they're doing it, with how they're going about it, with how they're marketing it. It feels a little too brass, right? A little too just like he does not care. And it just says, right? Oh, they rarely come after even legitimate, clinically necessary compound. Which, I mean, it makes sense that if it's legitimate, why would they go after you, right? So he's feeling confident. So let's exactly see how, what this process is that they, do the personalization. Because I guarantee you that's going to be the fight. That's the fight. That's the fight. And here it is right here, right? The compounded one, right? It says they had the same active ingredient as Ozempic and Wegovy. Once daily pill with the same active ingredient as Wegovy. So they had multiple things. I don't show here the pill because that was on another slide that they had. But here again, it says same active ingredient as Ozempic and Wegovy. And this, all it did was piss Novo off. That's what got them upset initially, right? Obviously, they're going to take some money off their table. And, but you're putting their, product name and trying to say it's the exact same when it's not. It makes people think that. And that's what they're getting upset about. It's it's a marketing tactic that seems a little fishy, right? And so they just want to clear that up. And so I think that's going to be a really big fight. That's going to be the biggest fight that Novo will be able to win. It also says obtain prescription for those products from medical professionals from affiliated medical groups, right? It says the weight loss customers purchase the GLP products from the defendants and obtain prescriptions from these products, right? The defendants, they fulfill the compounded semaglutide prescriptions through their affiliated pharmacies. So you see how they even quotes in the pharmacies because they've done deals with pharmacies, they've bought some facilities, right? So those are all the people that are, and those are all usually, if the 503B, right? 503A doesn't have to be FDA regulated at all, but 503B does. And so those are the pharmacies that have to be regulated and tested and all that stuff. So that's fine. The medical groups is the people, I'm assuming that those are the prescriptions, right? Those are the doctors that are writing the prescriptions and all of that. So I think those are the people that are going to come under the most scrutiny in terms of this whole compounding issue. It says individually, the defendants, Hims, individually and or in concert with one another, have infringed and continue to directly infringe knowingly and intentionally the 343 patent under this by using, selling, and or offering for sale in the U.S. compounded products containing semaglutide. So essentially, not only are they saying, yeah, they know they shouldn't be, but I mean, they're saying intentionally. Like, that makes it feel even worse. Like, of course they're like, they know, they know, but it's like knowingly and intentionally. Well, what's the intention? Is to hurt Novo, right? I think the intention is to make money, but they just try to make it sound, I feel that makes it sound worse. It says, I believe the accused products meet the limitations of at least claim one of the 343 patent because they contain semaglutide. So just because it contains it, you can't offer it, right? That's what they're essentially saying. Hims knowingly and intentionally inducing others to directly infringe the 343 patent. Defendants' inducement of infringement of the 343 patent is ongoing. So now they're also claiming that, and look at this is number 67. So I was going through all these. They're basically, essentially, they're like saying that Hims is like encouraging other companies to do illegal stuff, right? That's a big accusation, which if they're not, right, if the personalization is there, then they're not doing anything illegal. That was the exception to the law. That's just what it is. It says defendants, Hims and Hers, have actively encouraged others to infringe the 343 patent, right? They have knowingly and intentionally induced third-party semaglutide suppliers, partner, and or affiliated pharmacies, affiliated medical groups, providers, and patients to directly infringe literally or under the doctrine of equivalence. So I think they're like trying to say, oh, they just straight up did it, or, oh, we're doing it under the doctor's prescription, right? By making, using, selling, and or offering to sell in the U.S. So I think, again, that the whole prescription personalization is going to be key. They say they take active steps directly and or through contractual relationships with others with a specific intent to cause providers and or patients to use compounded semaglutide. So, again, it's more about them just saying, hey, Hims is taking these active steps to really make things bad, right? So here's the big one. Novo Nordisk has suffered damages as a result of the direct and indirect infringing activities of Hims and Hers and will continue to suffer such damages as long as those infringing activities continue. As a result of Hims' deliberate and willful infringement, Novo Nordisk is entitled to enhanced damages. It has caused and will continue to cause irreparable, oh my God. You know what? I'm skipping that word right now. So too many words, right? It's causing some big harm or irreversible harm to Novo Nordisk unless and until such infringement is enjoined by this court. Remedies at law are inadequate to compensate for the injury at Novo, warranting an injunction. That's big. They are saying you can't pay us enough. You can't pay us enough. It's just inadequate to compensate for the injury that we suffered. You need to stop everything. Stop it. Stop down, right? You can't just pay us a little bit of money and then, we're over it. No. You need to probably pay and stop down, right? Which, I mean, isn't that the whole point of it anyway, right? But I did want to know exactly how long this is going to last, right? Because this is going to last a while. What are the odds? What's the history behind these types of patent lawsuits and stuff? What's going to happen? So started diving deep a little bit into it. So Novo recently filed a patent infringement against Hims and Hers, seeking a ban plus damages. Because it's a newly filed federal case, there's no publicly announced end date or settlement timeline yet, right? Obviously, just happened. Patent and infringement lawsuits in the U.S. federal court, especially involving big pharmaceutical companies, typically take months to several years to resolve. Many months to several years. That's a big deal. Cases like this often stretch 1 to 3+ years before final resolutions unless the parties quickly settle. I feel like this is not a quick settling case. I don't know. Unless Hims comes up with some kind of evidence that blows Novo out of the water and they're like, okay, yeah, we're done, right? So I said, okay, give me some examples, right? Give me some big examples that Novo has done, big lawsuits that Novo has gone through recently, and how long did they last? This one, Minnesota Insulin, was filed in 2018, settled in January 2025. That is about 7 years from filing to settlement. This was a state-level consumer pricing case, not a patent case. Keep that in mind. Then, early 2018, it was filed. Plaintiffs voluntarily dismissed their claims in September of 2024. That was 6 years of active litigation before dismissal without a traditional settlement. Still, 6 years. And then in 2017, in U.S. federal court, finally they reached a settlement in September 2021 for about $100 million. The duration was about 4 years. It says, no, this is one of the more notable settled suits. Timelines vary depending on the complexity. Well, this Hims and Hers might get a little complex. I mean, it's not going to get too complex in the sense of it's not scientific. It's definitely more financial and just like, okay, this is what they were doing and they were selling or whatever, right? So that's going to be interesting. These were the key takeaways. Large consumer protection and pricing cases have tended to run multiple years before resolution, 6 to 7 years. Think about that. This could take 6 to 7 years. It is, why did I have to look down to see what year it was? Okay. It's 2026. And if this takes 6 to 7 years, this could drag into the 2030s. The 2030s. Keep that in mind. That's a big part of the secret that I was saying. Federal securities litigation that settled occurred in about 4 years. 2030, 2031 is huge. Huge. These timelines reflect big, complex litigation, often involving discovery, motions, and lengthy negotiations. So, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I said, well, what does that mean for Novo and Hims case, right? And it says it's a different type of litigation, patent enforcement versus pricing or securities claims, right? So historically, complex federal cases often take years to resolve, even if a settlement is reached early in the process. If the parties do negotiate a settlement, it might conclude faster than a full trial, but still usually spans many months or a few years from filing based on related Novo Nordisk litigation timelines. We are looking at possibly years of this dragging on. That's a risk, right? It says, bottom line, if Novo Nordisk patent lawsuit against Hims and Hers follows a pattern seen in recent pharmaceutical patent enforcement disputes, then a negotiated settlement, if it happens early, might occur within a year or two after the lawsuit starts. It hasn't started, it's just been filed. If the case becomes more contentious and involves deeper litigation or trial prep, it could stretch into the 2 or 3 year range before the final resolution and settlement. But recent examples suggest many patent enforcement disputes that settle out of trial resolve in roughly 10 months to 2 years once active litigation is underway. So we are looking at I'd have to say we're looking at a good 1 to 2 year process with this. At least 1 to 2 year process with fighting this lawsuit with Novo. Right? It's going to be at least a 1 to 2 year process. I don't know exactly how that's going to happen. So what's going to happen with the brand, right? What's going to happen to the company? What kind of pain are they going to go through? Well, as you can already see, and this was, I think I took this yesterday. This chart's worse. This chart is worse. I'm sure whatever day you're watching this chart is worse. But the 1 year chart from when I took it, which was going to be February 10, February 11, it was down 61% on the 1 year, and it has a 33% short interest. I mean, people think this stock is going into the gutter. People think this business is going into the gutter, right? That's what this says basically. The forward PE on this growth stock used to be at like 100, and now it's 36. I mean, it was actually way more than that, right? But it is just it's actually pretty crazy. Or maybe it wasn't 100. Maybe it was a little bit less. Why can't I get to my next? There we go. If a brand like Hims loses the major lawsuit, the fallout can ripple in a few different ways. Damages, legal fees, settlements, right? If it's a huge number, it can meaningfully hurt cash flows or profitability, right? This company, especially if the company is still scaling, which it is, it's growing, it's scaling, it's buying these facilities, it's acquiring other companies. So first of all, just this lawsuit in general is going to hurt them because now they have to pay all this legal fees. But if they lose, they're going to have to pay a lot of money, right? They're going to have to pay a lot of money. So we'll see. It says for a consumer brand, even a manageable payout can spook investors because margins are already tight in healthcare marketing. And that's true. That's true, right? Because they already have to deal with a bunch of stuff, and now they got to deal with this litigation. This is not good, especially if they lose, right? That's going to look bad. Injunctions, right? That's what they're seeking. Sometimes worse than money, which it's a sneaky killer. Of course it is. A court might order them to stop selling a specific product or using a certain advertising language, which clearly is using the same active ingredient as we go. They're going to have to stop that immediately. But selling a specific product, yeah. If it's personalized though, right? A personalized product is not going against the law. So we'll see. If the lawsuit's unfair if the lawsuit is about IP, an injunction can force a business model to change overnight. Money is one thing, losing the ability to sell a core offering is way worse. If for some reason Hims gets hit and saying you can't even offer compounded semaglutide under your prescriptions and all that, that would be devastating. Just absolutely devastate the company, the business model, the facilities that they're buying, like that, overnight. Change your business model overnight. It could happen. And the brand trust takes a hit, right? Healthcare brands live and die on trust, right? If you don't trust a healthcare brand, you're not going to do with their stuff. And, if the headlines read company found liable for misleading claims, right? Competitor wins lawsuit over deceptive marketing, which that might actually happen. It might not be the full lawsuit, but they're going to win over deceptive marketing maybe. And product claims challenge, right? All these things. It says even if customers don't fully understand the legal details, perception shifts fast. As you can see that stock. People start asking, is this legit? Is it safe? People really don't believe in Hims and they don't believe on what's going on, right? Because we don't really know exactly how legit all of it is. We're going to find out real soon. Regulatory attention increases a lot. Regulatory attention increases. This is another risk, right? A lawsuit can attract extra scrutiny from the FDA, of course, FTC, but state medical boards. And I underline that one because I think dealing with, again, the prescriptions and dealing with these, affiliated medical, people, the companies and all of this stuff. So it's like, if they hurt those relationships, that can be bad, right? They need prescription. I fully believe that they need these prescriptions to be filled in order for their business to run. So if they're not getting their prescriptions, they cannot sell the compounded shot of semaglutide. I hate that word. I'm just going to call it glute. I'm going to call it glutide. The stock price and investor confidence dropped. The lawsuit just announced. I mean, it was already on its way down, but the lawsuit got announced at its lowest, some of its lowest, ever since the IPO, and then it went straight down. I mean, it's down. The public markets hate uncertainty. Investors worry about future lawsuits, business model sustainability. So you often see a sharp dip right after the ruling or after the filing. Right? Investors are going to be like, well, what's going to happen? I don't trust this. And this is what's really going to push and put a lot of pressure on this stock, probably for the next year or two. If there's no clear path, and I don't know exactly the laws of, can him say anything to the public while it's ongoing? I doubt it, right? They're not going to be able to go on X and say, hey, we feel confident. And like, I just don't know what that's going to happen. So I don't know if they're going to be able to pump positivity, optimistic energy into investors when you might not be able to speak about it until it's over. So that's going to be very interesting, right? And then, of course, the competitive disadvantage. The competitor that wins can suddenly gain market credibility. Ha! We were right. And then they have more room to dominate the category. Like, they need more room. Novo. I'll explain that. Lawsuits drain companies. Even just going into the lawsuit, it can drain your money, right? But after a major loss, leadership often has to restructure departments, revise marketing strategy, pause expansion, and rework partnerships. Employees also get nervous and talent retention becomes harder. So everything becomes harder. This is all internal disruption, but still, we do not want to see a loss for HIMSS. Now, long-term outcome depends on severity, right? Not every loss is a fatal, right? There's a minor loss where you pay some damages, tweak your ads, and you move on. This could be, I'm very hoping, this could be it. Say, hey, look, as the shortage stopped, we continued to sell the commercial, just regular glutide, right? I'm just going to call it that. But when it comes to the personalization and the compounded, we're doing it legally. Under the law, we're doing it legally. Okay. So for X amount of time, for about, maybe 8 to 12 months, maybe somewhere around there, we were selling this for a little, and that's going to have some damages that they want, right? And that's it. Okay. We sold it for a little bit when you said we shouldn't for the shortage, right? Tweak ads. Okay, we're never going to put active ingredient as Wegovy, and then you move on. All right, fine. Screw you, Novo. Screw you, HIMSS. You guys don't like each other. I'm hoping that that's what happens. The moderate loss is if they lose a product line, right? Lose a product line, take reputational hit, and slower growth, which could also happen. If for any reason they have to take out that, to be honest with you, I don't think there is even a moderate loss in this. I think it's either minor or major. I don't think you can lose the product line without having your core business restricted, right? So the major loss, their core business, the core business of HIMSS is the weight loss, right? It's not everything, but it is a core business. You'll have to pay a lot in the major settlement. Investors are going to pull back from it, right? A major pullback, and then existential risk. Man, I am like, but are they even going to be able to exist? I do think so. They do have a lot of different products and do different things, so it's going to be okay, but you never know. Practical outcome, Novo may prefer HIMSS exit the category, pays a settlement, or agrees to restrictions, right? The restrictions would probably be to stop making compounded glutide, right? So that would be exiting the category. So the most common real world endpoint is 25 million to 150 million settlement and a product shutdown. The product shutdown is what's a lot bigger than the money, for sure, 100. The bottom line, if Novo wins outright, they could realistically walk away with tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, plus an injunction that protects billions in future drug revenue. So if Novo wins, it's going to be a big deal, for sure. And this is kind of one of the reasons why is GLP accounts for roughly 25% of HIMSS revenue. Losing this segment threatens growth and has triggered a 60% stock drawdown. Like I said, 60% over the last year, right? So that was the bad news, right? The bad news was, just so you know, was based on what they are suing them for, not what they have proof of. Okay, so all that negative stuff I just went through, the pain, that was a lot longer because it's the lawsuit. HIMSS necessarily, if they win, they don't necessarily win anything, right? Sorry, I got 2 kids. I have long days, so I record at night. Hims doesn't have a lot to gain in terms of right away that they're not going to get anything financially, right? This is not a money grab at all. They're protecting themselves, right? But I do want to go over the positives that could happen if they do win this, right? So if they do win it, and first I wanted to show you kind of how they could win it. It says the FDA Section 503 exempts compounded drugs from FDA approval and labeling requirements if produced by licensed pharmacists and physicians for identified patients based on valid and individual prescriptions. Restricts compounding copies of commercial drugs, right? So yes, you cannot do the copies of commercial drugs. Like, you cannot do that. But if you want to make an individual prescription to someone's need, you can do that. You can do that. Applies to traditional patient-specific compounding, not large-scale commercial manufacturing. So they did buy multiple. They bought the large-scale and they bought 503A and 503B. 503A is for smaller, 503B is for bigger bulk. But they also do other things. They do erectile dysfunction, they do hair, they do skin, they do menopause and testosterone. They're getting into more stuff, right? So just because they're buying these compounded facilities doesn't mean everything is focused on GLP-1. That's not what it is. Conditions based on a valid prescription for a specific patient. Limited quantities may be prepared in anticipation of prescriptions and cannot regularly compound copies of commercially available drugs. So again, that it's okay to do it as long as they have a prescription. I mean, just right here, based on a valid prescription for a specific patient. This is the biggest part right here. I guarantee you. And it also says you cannot, make false claims, claiming superiority over FDA, or even saying that it's the same active ingredient, right? You can't even do that. What is the practical value of Hims winning, right? So, oh God, what happened? So if Hims wins, they gain no damages owed, right? They avoid paying all this money. There's no injunction, so they can keep selling. The category legitimacy. Now all of a sudden people are going to say, hold on, they're for real. And then the stock market upside, which, God, I cannot wait for that to happen. Because, man, I got hit hard. The win could be worth hundreds of millions or even billions in market value. Right? Depending on, well, I think if they win, it is worth billions. It is definitely worth billions. This is the stuff that they sold, that they also sell, right? Like I said, weight loss, sexual health, dermatology, mental health, hormone health, longevity. They sell all of these different things. They believe that they have the ability to help over 100 million consumers across the specialties and regions they serve. Now, Hims does really want to be personalized healthcare. So again, they are very focused on personalized healthcare, and by doing that, you need prescription, and you talk to the doctor, you talk about these very specific things, you get your blood test, you do this. So that is technically legal. It's technically legal, and that's what they're doing. The commercially compounded one that they were just selling straight out when there was a shortage and then continued to sell it when the shortage ended, they can't do that. Putting same active ingredient as Wegovy, you can't do that. But filling a compounded drug due to a prescription, a valid prescription, you can do that. So again, even though they are being sued for weight loss, the brand gain, they already are in all of these segments. So not only will the weight loss get very empowered by the win, all of these other categories will too, right? And as you can see, they're already serving other countries. They're serving Europe, and then Canada is going to be happening soon with weight loss. As you saw in the lawsuit, it said Andrew Dunham mentioned Canada. The patent is going to be up in Canada, so they're going to be able to do it there. Continuing to, if they win, they can continue to compound, right? I still think I'm not going to say if I think they're going to win or lose this, but I just don't see them losing the compounding case. Hims, I don't see them losing it unless there's something really going on fishy with the pharmacies and the prescriptions, right? That's the only way. I think that's the only way. Weight loss revenue of at least $725 million in 2025. That's obviously estimated. That's huge, right? 30%, somewhere around there, of their revenue. If they continue to be able to sell that, that's going to be great, right? That's wonderful. And I honestly don't think, as the trial goes on, I don't think they're going to stop. Why would they stop? It's not like, people need to understand this. Hims is not going to stop selling it. They're not going to stop selling it. They are not going to stop selling it just because they're in this lawsuit. They're still going to do the compounding drug because I believe that they are doing the right thing, that they are doing the legal thing. So if they fully believe that, if they stop doing the compounding GLP-1 during the lawsuit, you're admitting you're doing something wrong. That is where you're like, you know what I mean? So I think they're going to keep going. Because if you aren't doing anything illegal, why would you stop doing that legal thing just because you're in court for it? Like, no, keep going. It's legal. So I think they're going to keep selling it. So their revenue is not going to drop by it's not going to go cratering. But it says the weight loss drug. Now remember, we're back into the positive, right? So if they win this, right, or just come out with a small settlement, a small loss, like I said, due to the advertising and the small shortage part where they went from not being in a shortage and then them selling the commercialized GLP, right? That's something different. But it says weight loss drug use is projected to surge, with estimates suggesting 9 to 13% of the U.S. population, roughly 10 to 30 million adults, could be taking GLP-1 medications like Ozempic and Wegovy by 2030 and 2035. Please keep this in mind. This also says the global market for these drugs may reach 100 to 150 billion by 2030, 2035. When you're dealing in business, you deal in big chunks. You're not going to say, well, what am I going to do next month? What am I going to do, next week? What am I going to do tomorrow? Like, you're always going to think about what you have to do and all that stuff. But instead, when you speak of goals and you're thinking about the goals, you think way far in advance. Where do we want to be in a year, and in 5 years, in 10 years? These dates, these years are going to be huge, right? We're looking at how many people are going to be using it in around these years, right? And it's very important to remember. User population projections indicate up to 9% of the population will use these drugs by 2035. Market growth, global weight loss drug market could reach 150 billion by 2035. Another estimate by Goldman Sachs predicted 100 billion by 2030. Future applications may expanded use cases. So future applications may extend beyond obesity, potentially treating cardiovascular disease, kidney diseases, addiction, and Alzheimer's. Now, that works in Hims' favor, right? Because they do a lot of personalized drug stuff. They're going to do cancer screening. So they're going to do a lot of the stuff that can help prevent some of this or help treat it earlier. So if they are able to compound this drug and use it, and maybe possibly use it for these other things that they're a part of, right? They're going to be part of this health ecosystem. And it says demand is expected to rise, though high costs and supply chain limitations currently persist. I wonder why. Why is there high costs and supply chain limitations? Not supply chain shortages, not supply shortages, supply chain limitations. It's because Novo controls it. Future investments, right? We're going to go over really quick how they've been doing their investments. Obviously, their investments will get affected if it's a loss or a win. So if they do win, though, they get to really keep going and pushing hard on these investments. They have, They heavily invested, I didn't underline that, in compounding infrastructure to build a fully integrated, personalized healthcare supply chain. Personalized healthcare supply chain. This is going to be big in court, including at least $75 million in identified acquisitions to secure pharmacy testing and peptide production capabilities. So they spent $31 in 503B outsourcing facility for mass compounding, not just for GLP-1, obviously. $39 million for for CS Bio to support peptide synthesis, and then $5 million for Tribe Labs for at-home lab testing. So again, they are really building this portfolio of personalized healthcare. Our multi-year investments in our facilities drive our personalization capabilities. So they, in California, Arizona, Ohio, New Jersey, as you can see, again, they're just investing everywhere and they're trying to build the personalization. Recent acquisitions strengthen their value proposition in near term and provide a foundation for the long-term vision. So you have, they over here 503B, then they got the lab testing, then they got the peptide facility, and then Zava, which is going to be huge for Europe. That's what they're going to be pushing a lot because of this. The secret that no one is talking about. Now, it took me 50 minutes to get here, and I'm surprised I haven't had any more technical difficulties besides my stupid text at the bottom. But this number one secret, the secret that no one is talking about, is this. Technically, the patent for the GLP-1 semaglutide should have had an expiration closer to 2025. However, Novo Nordisk applied for patent term extension, which is a mechanism that can extend the life of a patent for several years based upon delay due to a pharmaceuticals approval process at the FDA. This was an enormous boon to Novo Nordisk because it will allow the company to charge monopoly prices for Ozempic for several more years, free from lower cost generic competition. Right there. That's it. Novo is trying to get as much, they're trying to squeeze the juice because this patent is up in 5 years. And when it is up, all hands on deck, anyone can use it. Novo is trying their hardest to squeeze the juice. They're trying to get as much money as they can from it. They're trying to, and it says right here, right? Who's going to pay for all that? Consumers will be forced to pay for that, right? If there was competition that could offer a compounded version, more personalized to you at a lower cost, how does that hurt people? That doesn't hurt anybody. I understand the science behind it, right? They had this patent, and so you can't do exactly the way that they're doing it. But like, it seems very monopolistic, and that's what it feels like, right? So, yeah. So that, I think that's a big one. The patent, which covers active ingredient and pharmaceutical formulation for Ozempic, Wegovy, the semaglutide, is scheduled to expire in the United States on December 5th, 2031. So more like 6 years, about 6 years, right? The original expiration date was extended due to a patent term extension granted for regulatory delays. December 5th, 2031 is the key date for the specific core compound patent. Here's a big one. This patent expiration date applies to the United States only. In other regions, China and Canada, the patent for semaglutide are set to expire earlier, with some in 2026. They're going to start facing increased competition real big in the next 5 to 6 years. And they're going to squeeze as much of this juice as they can out of the weight loss drug, right? So that is what I think. So my conclusion, if Hims loses the lawsuit, obviously it could be devastating to the financials and the operations currently. Eventually they'll still be able to sell it. They'll still have their testosterone and sexual health and the mental health and the menopause and the hair and all this stuff, right? They could do all these other things that they still make millions of dollars. The weight loss was a big one for Hims. But it doesn't mean that they're out of the game completely, right? I mean, first of all, I don't even know how they're going to lose. Like, they could lose the lawsuit, but it doesn't mean that they'll lose it completely. It could be a minor loss where they're only losing the ad part, right? They lost the ad and then the specific time frame where the shortage was announced, done with, but they continued to sell the commercialized one for a while. That they could get hit on, right? but you can't get hit if you are doing a personalized prescription medication for somebody, which that is legal. It's legal. Under the law, it is legal to do. So, if they win this, financials will skyrocket and give a clear path for a profitable future, because Hims will get first of all, they already offer some of the best prices. They have some of the best marketing out there. They're one of the most known companies. And if they go toe-to-toe with the maker of the weight loss drug and they win, that's going to be huge. And it'll be huge. It gets a clear path of, okay, we can use our facilities. We can do like everything that we thought we could do, right? That's... More than anything, it gives a clear path. Now, I say financials will skyrocket. I think because they'll just continue to grow, right, in the rate that they really want it to. I don't mean skyrocket like all of a sudden there's going to be a huge change, right? Because Hims would still not be able to offer the commercialized semaglutide, right? The semaglutide. They won't be able to do that. They can only do compounded. Even if they win, the solution or the settlement will still be you can only do the compounded version. So it's not like the financials really will change that much, honestly. But it will continue to go up, especially with what they had last year. You could say the financials could skyrocket. And is that the last one? Yeah, so that's it. Oh my gosh, that was a long one. If you are still watching after an hour almost, please give a like and subscribe. That was a lot. I went through a lot. I hope you got something out of this. Hims and Novo are they're about to do a big fight in court, because this is about a drug that's worth a lot of money. And like I said, Novo wants to hold on to this monopoly for as long as they can. They're going to squeeze as much orange juice or squeeze as much weight loss out of that drug as they possibly can. They're already facing competition overseas, and they're going to be facing competition in the US in about 6 years, and they know that. So they're just trying to get as much as they can now. It's pretty messed up that they're trying to hurt another company when they're doing it in a personalized way. They're not just saying, hey, here's a weight loss, just take it, I personally would like a personalized version of the drug. I don't think a one-size-fits-all with medication. I truly don't believe that at all. So I believe what Hims is trying to do is amazing. They're trying to be personalized. They're trying to get your blood so they can, that sounded evil. They're trying to get your blood levels and the stats and data, right? And I mean, again, that almost sounds bad too, but they're just trying to help you. They're not trying to help. I live in Los Angeles. They're not trying to help Los Angeles. They're trying to help me. So, I think one of my kids just woke up. But yeah, that was a long one. If you got anything out of this, please give a like and subscribe. Comment anything that you did learn or anything that you may think about it. What do you think is going to happen? Seriously, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think Hims is going to lose? Do you think they're going to win? Exactly what do you think is going to happen? So that's that. Yeah, all I can say is be aware and be prepared. Never be scared. And never forget to earn it, save it, invest it, buy low, sell high. I want assets, not liabilities, and you can count on compounded interest.